What's going on, team? Welcome to an episode of the Keep Going Podcast, Season 2. This is your co-host, Luke Wheat, coming out of Knoxville, Tennessee. Before the show starts, make sure to follow us on our socials, okay? Twitter, the Keep Going Pod, Insta, the KG Podcast, and YouTube at the KG Pod. Just a reminder that we are not psychiatrists and not psychologists, just a couple ex-athletes trying to make a difference and end the stigma of mental health. Thank you guys for listening, and let's get to the show.
That keep going moment.
My keep going moment.
That's my keep going moment.
Let's keep going.
Hey, team. Welcome to episode 55 of the Keep Going Podcast, Athletes Shining a Light on Mental Health. I'm blessed, honored to be here with my co-host, Jackie Tripp. Jackie, what's going on?
Not much. Got work later today, and I took my sister out for a celebratory dinner last night for her internship. So I'm chilling, rolling into this week, and I'm headed to Hawaii on Tuesday. So all good vibes over here.
Love it. Where are you coming out today? And tell listeners a little bit what's going on with your sister, too.
I'm coming out of Plymouth. My sister, I feel like if you've listened to a few, I feel like I mentioned my sister a decent amount. She got a Division I, trying to think of the exact title. She got a year-long internship in Indianapolis at the NCAA headquarters, and her position is along the lines of Division I women's basketball, like Final Four compliance. So basically, they only hired one person for this position, so it's kind of a big deal that she got it. But she'll be behind the scenes running the Final Four, and all that. Headed back and forth to the host site and stuff. So basically, if we get Caitlin Clark on the podcast, then that's why.
I love it. And not only am I excited for her, but I'm excited for her future, right? I think to see young athletes and young leaders making those steps is always good. I know our next generation is definitely in good hands. Jim, I definitely want to introduce you. I got Jim Vert in the building. I say it a couple times a year, but just a sweet dude. Just one of my favorite guys. Someone that when we started this, I knew I had to have Coach Vert on. Coach Vert, where are you coming out today? Where are you located?
I live in Northern California, about 2 hours north of Sacramento, 2 hours south of the Oregon border. It's a town called Red Bluff. Northern California is completely, everybody's idea of California is, Hollywood, the beaches, all that stuff. But where I live, it's really rural and mountainous, rivers, lakes. It's really beautiful up here. But yeah, NorCal. And it's good to be here, Pat. I appreciate you guys having me and looking forward to it. I miss you. I don't get to talk to you as much, because we're on different teams now. But, yeah, it's good to be here, buddy.
You know what? I think sometimes you have to look around and go, Scottie Pippen left Jordan. It's like we had a good thing going, Jim. We had to do our separate thing. Yep. Obviously, I'm Pippen. You're definitely Jordan. I'm just saying, like I went to the Trailblazers. But just telling you, it's been a blessing knowing you, and definitely excited to share it with our listeners today. Jim, I don't know if you've tuned into lessons before. I don't know if you've tuned into episodes before, but we do touch on one thing every week, and it's our number episode and a sports player with that number. It is episode 55 today. So if you have an episode 55 player, I'd love to hear a number 55 if you got one.
Ooh. Well, I wasn't expecting that. 55. Gosh, Pat.
And if you got to kick it over and take some time, I got one ready. I don't know if Jackie has one. I'm not sure.
I'm drawing blank. Seau, was he 55?
Junior Seau, I will fact check that. I'm not sure. I will check that. Jackie, what do you got?
The long-haired pitcher on the Giants. What the hell is his name?
Tim Lincecum.
Was he 50-something?
I will check into that, too.
Okay.
I have to confirm both of those. I do have one for the group. I don't bring much to the table, but I do bring random Bears guys every week. Lance Briggs wore 55 out of California for you, Jim. Thought of that one today, so I had that one ready to go. But on a serious note, Jim, like I said, super excited to have you here. Definitely want to touch on a couple things. With us being a mental health podcast, we ask every week what our guests, what our listeners do for their mental health. when you're feeling good, when you're having a good day, when you're having a good week, a good month, tell our listeners some things that you do when things are going well.
Well, the first thing I think of, guys, is gratitude. You know, I mean, you know, if you do what we do long enough, whether you're coaching, playing, I just take a second to step back and appreciate, you know, the good things. And as you get older, guys, I mean, you know, I'm a lot older than you, and you get to look back and you get to reflect a lot. But I just really appreciate it. You know, I'm thankful for it, Pat, is what I really do. But gratitude, just when a week's going good, that means you've done some good things to help people. And you know, that's just one of my things. If I can help someone get closer to their goals or to achieve something they're really trying to get to a goal, then man, that's a great feeling. So
We're coming off the top rope, and we're getting started up real quick here. Jackie, what do you got this week? What's been going well for you? How you been feeling?
I've been feeling good in the mornings. I had sometimes struggle with being anxious first thing in the morning. So this week, a few mornings, I did a few different things. One morning, I made myself get up and go get coffee with my best friend before she had school and I had work. Another day, two friends of mine and myself went to the beach and did a cold plunge. And then on either Thursday or Friday before I had work, I went into my friend's shake shop and I had a protein shake and hung out with them there before I went into work. And just realizing the importance of just community and being around people and how much that can do for your mental health.
I absolutely love that. And I've been doing a lot of research in that lately. I brought it up in other episodes. Like when you have a chance to eat lunch with someone in comparison to eating at your desk, or if you have a chance to go get coffee with a loved one instead of drinking coffee at your kitchen table by yourself, like the numbers and like the stack against numbers when it comes to by yourself compared to in a friendship, family group setting, it's night and day for your mental health. So I would challenge everyone to take those leaps and do what Jim touched on. Have gratitude, be thankful, impact people, and try to bring some people along the way. I think that's powerful for sure. Man, those are two really good ones. I'll kind of give my brief one quick. I did have a Christmas party last night with some of my high school best friends. It's always good to get back with people and talk about memories. And like, I use the quote all the time. You don't know about the good old days until you're way past them, right? You kind of take your memory where you can get them. So I think hanging out with my friends, getting back with my people is usually my common one on this podcast for sure. Well, Jim, I want to swing it over to you. Obviously, football background. For the listeners that don't know about you, Coach, talk about kind of how you started loving this game of football.
Wow. You know, I originally, Pat, when I was little, it was all about baseball, you know, and I was really, really into that. And, yeah, I loved it. And, gosh, I was into every sport, you know, football, basketball, baseball, track. I mean, if it was a sport, I played it. I just really loved the competitive part of it. You know, the part about working hard to get better at something. Football, you know, I got into it basically my 7th grade year and played, you know, Pop Warner, high school. I played in college and just loved it. I really, really did. Like everybody, I had a dream, you know, like, hey, maybe I can go to the NFL someday and stuff like that. But I was kind of a tweener, and there's probably some kids out there that you guys know too that are just tweeners. I was a little too slow to play linebacker at the major college level, and too small to be an offensive lineman at the major college level. So anyway, and I got to tell you a funny story. I met a basketball coach at my college, and I remember one time he said, "If you can't play it, coach it." And I said, "Well, what do you mean? I mean, you got to be able to play it to coach." He goes, "Oh, I don't mean that. I mean, if you can advance as a player, coach it." And I thought about it a long time, and I'd always kind of helped out with youth teams, and I loved it. Loved helping kids. started coaching, and then shoot, Pat, ended up coaching almost 35 years. So
incredible. And I think right off the jump as well, that quote is awesome because you see it so much in the MLB, in the NFL, in the NBA. People that never played this game at a high level all of a sudden are out there winning championships and making an impact on a lot of people. Jackie, what do you got?
My question was going to be, how did that transition from player to coach go?
It went well. And guys, I was a terrible coach when I grew up in the age of, guys, I'll tell you what, they used to give us salt tablets at practice. Yeah, so you wouldn't get dehydrated. And you think back now, you could kill somebody doing that. But, I grew up in, like Pat, I'll give you something you could relate to. The coaches I really related well to were like the Bobby Knight type guys, right? I disciplinarian, and I didn't know how to transition that. And I started coaching little kids, 10 years old. And I was a little bit too harsh on them.
Not to cut you off. So you're saying you couldn't just throw a chair at these kids? That wasn't an acceptable thing to do?
Yeah, exactly. But, I had some great mentors, guys. And I had some guys that had me step back and say, hey, Jim, let's look at what we're trying to accomplish here. And what I learned, and I went to clinics, I met with coaches. So the transition was a little rocky and choppy at first. But I heard another quote, guys, and I remember a coach, we were at some big, I don't know, it was a camp of some kind. And I remember a coach said to his guys, he said, hey, guys, stop yelling and start coaching. And I always remembered that. And I thought, you know what? Hey, bingo, light bulb went on. And so I kind of started, and, I played for some really good coaches. And I learned a lot from each one of them, and I just kind of took what they all did. And then eventually I actually kind of started to know what I was doing. But I know it was fun. And guys, when you coach that long and you're involved with that many lives, I've been to weddings, babies being born, funerals, graduations. It's pretty intense, but it's been a great joy.
That's incredible. Jackie, I know you came off mute. Go ahead.
Well, I obviously go to a lot of basketball games, a lot of sporting events, and I really obviously enjoy watching the game, but I enjoy watching coaches too, just seeing how they react. And I think on so many occasions I encounter coaches. I've had coaches like this that they're so knowledgeable on the sport that they're coaching, but they don't have the body language component down or the relationship component down. Like, I think an issue a lot of coaches run into is that, especially with this new generation and things are different, I think there's a lot of coaches that are kind of stuck in the middle where they know a lot, but they don't have the relationship piece down. And it seems like you have both of those things down. And like you just hit on it saying you've been to weddings and funerals and etc., which people at the end of the day, I care more about if you care about them as a person over a player. So I'm getting that energy from you. So I wanted to touch on that because I think that's a great thing, because there's a quote too, I'm sure you've heard it. It's something along the lines of, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Amen.
That's it.
Jackie,
and I
couldn't be more right.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Coach.
Yeah, what I was going to say is Jackie hit the nail on the head. And, the thing about it is, and Pat, I think it's why you and I hit it off. I'm not afraid to tell someone I love them. I'm not. I think, guys, life is so short. It just is. And, why hold back? And one, I always love my players, but they know it. There's times when, I'll pull a player aside, put my arm around them, hug them, tell them what I'm thinking. There's times I'll pat them on the rear end like I'm, not mad at them, but like, get it together, dude. They know that I care about them and that they mean more to me. And again, guys, I have great relationships with so many of my players. It's a blessing. So you're right. 100%. Love that saying, too. It's right on the money.
I was going to kind of parlay it with, you talk about speakers, like our guy, Rich Jurgen now. That's what he's doing. Obviously, Jim, we're all on the same team. And Rich talks about it. Other speakers have talked about it. The second they realized that it wasn't about having the speakers love them, it was how the speaker wanted to really, really show how much he loved them. That's when things changed. And I always go back to that quote, and we're all in the same ballpark. But I did want to segue here because you told me this story and it stuck with me. And I'm going to be honest, Jim, I listen to a lot of podcasts. I do a lot of the mental health stuff, and not a lot of stuff sticks with me. Like the story you told me about your quarterback. I need you to tell that for our listeners. It's a perfect parlay for this. And please tell me his name too, so we can get this out to him.
Is it the one about the in the huddle, the quarterback, or is it the one about the big hit?
Right. That's exactly where I want to go. Yes.
Okay, so had a quarterback, played for me many years ago. His name's Matt Nichols. He was an All-American Division I AA player at Eastern Washington, two-time Big Sky Offensive Player of the Year. He's a great kid. And Matt went on to play in the Canadian Football League for 10 or 12 years.
We might have to have him on, Jim. I'm not going to lie. That's a shameless plug. I might have to get him on here, but go ahead.
Hey, I'll tell you what, he's awesome. Great leader. But we were having a quarterback competition at our school, and the guy he was competing against was one of his best friends, Aaron Richards, who's a heck of a high school football coach right now. And he was a great player also. And this competition was going on, and we were really struggling. When we brought our offensive line in, and we talked to them, we said, hey, guys, what are your thoughts on the two quarterbacks? Because we can't go wrong with either one, but we can only really play one of them. And every one of them, and this is nothing against Aaron because it was a little thing. And they said, you know what, Coach, we love them both. We prefer Matt. And it was unanimous. And I was like, well, what's the deal? He goes, well, we know he loves us. I go, well, how do you know that, Aaron? And he goes, Coach, it's just when we're in the huddle, when Matt's talking to us, he rubs the top of all of our helmets. Kind of like he's playing a piano or something. But he would rub their helmets, and they just, and it made me, guys, and I've known this forever because I played offensive line too. And all an offensive lineman wants is to be loved. They don't want ink in the paper. They don't, they want to be loved. And I'll tell you what, they knew that he loved them just because I'll never forget that as long as I live. And Matt had a great career, and he just missed hanging on with the Dallas Cowboys, which is my most hated team in the world, Pat. I hate them.
Oh, I know.
I would have rooted for him if he had ended up there. But yeah, great story.
Can I ask you something about that? I think I know the answer, but I just want to kind of highlight it for our listeners. Do you think the guys, the coaches, the players, the professors, the teachers that show that kind of emotion, show that kind of love, do you think they get more out of their players? Get more out of their teachers? Their students?
Absolutely. Pat, you and Jackie can probably even do this. Guys, I've been out of school for 40 years, and I can tell you to this day who my favorite teacher was in high school and who my favorite teacher was in college. And it's because when I went to their class, they made me laugh. I was engaged. I knew they were passionate. And by the way, anybody that's on today, one of the reasons I was so drawn to Pat is I heard one of his coaching workshops he did. And I said, I got to tell you, I could play for that guy. And what I found in Pat was his passion. But when a teacher, a professor, a coach is passionate about what they're doing, and Jack, you kind of alluded to it a little earlier, it's engrossing. It's a draw. It's alluring, and it's different, So that for me Yeah.
Jackie,
I think 100%.
I'm gonna go to you in 2 seconds here, and this is why I didn't think I was going to talk about this on today's episode, but I want to highlight it. Listening to Coach Vert talk today, after how many years of coaching and being the guy he is working, he's worked with thousands of athletes in this game. He admitted early on in this conversation that he was doing it all wrong in the beginning, like all wrong. So if you're a player right now and you're getting coached poorly in your eyes, if you're a coach right now and you have a player not really buying into what you're doing, lead with love and lead with understanding that we're all trying to figure this out. Because I know we have listeners every week that are in the transfer portal, that are having bad relationships with their coaches. And they just don't, they're not, something is not right. Leading with love and leading with opportunity to pivot to growth is, it has truly got past the test of time, as you can tell by Coach Vert's story. And look at the guy now. Jackie, what do you got?
I got two things here because I had one thing in regards to what Jim said and one thing to what you just said. We were talking about how you remember your favorite professor and teacher and you wanted to work with Pat because it's just when somebody has passion like that, it's like it spreads and it spreads to everyone who's around them. I sent Pat a quote earlier this week and it said something, I'm reading it right now. It says, be so completely yourself that everybody else feels safe to be themselves too. And I sent this to Pat and I said, this is exactly you because like you said, Jim, I would love to have Pat as a coach because even if Pat didn't know everything or he screwed up a play or maybe he wasn't super knowledgeable as a coach yet, his passion and his energy and his love would just literally like trump all of that. And it wouldn't even matter because I would just, as a player, feel so loved. And like Pat just touched on how you were talking about how in the beginning of your coaching career, you had it wrong. It reminded me this week we were texting Pat, Luke, and I about the podcast. And I said something about how like, oh, I'll never forget listening to the first episode. And Luke fires back in the chat and is like, our first episode sucked. And that just kind of like was it not a good reminder that he thinks the first episode sucks, but it's like your first podcast episode might suck. Your first year coaching, you might not be great. I think that there's such an instant gratification problem in our culture and in sports. And I think people need to hear that today that like you're not probably going to have all the knowledge and skills right away, but if you stick with it and you love people and you're passionate, then everything will work itself out.
Yeah. Yeah. Guys, I'll tell you it, and I would say this to any young coaches and any young players. Guys, you're gonna have bad bosses. You're gonna have bad teachers. You're gonna have bad coaches, or whether they're good or bad, just maybe guys you don't click with, and it's gonna happen. It's inevitable, and it's just about you find. Like I'll give you an example, guys. My son, my oldest son, Jacob, just recently got out of a really toxic relationship with a girl he'd been with a long time, and it was unhealthy. And it's hard when you've committed to something so long, and maybe you're in a situation that's not good. You got to remove yourself from that. And the thing that I would always say is that, there's some great coaches, some great teachers, some great professors out there. If you're a coach that doesn't know, or you feel like you're not there, get a mentor. You'll find people that have done this, and there's a lot of wisdom in coaches that have done it a long time. And I look, Pat, you know how it is, and I'm sure you do too, Jackie. Shoot, I learn things every day from people. I've learned such cool things. Actually, at NCSA, I've learned a lot from other coaches that are colleagues. And you just got to, put those things together. And Pat, these kids entering the transfer portals, I mean, that's one of those things. It's a different world now. And everyone's looking for an opportunity. And I get it, but I think the main thing is try to find someone, whether you're a player or coach, a mentor or someone that can help you achieve the goals you're trying to achieve. So
Yeah, no, I kind of want to stay there too, and I love that. Obviously, I just know how much of a guide and a mentor and a leader you've been with so many athletes and so many people. But it stemmed off of you getting to see the good, bad, and indifferent in your career coming up. It's a domino effect. It truly is. We control kind of what way and what momentum we're going to have. Why I wanted to stay there was talk to our listeners. Like, if you have someone out there listening today that doesn't have anybody, right? That's struggling with some of these mental health issues, that's not doing things the right way and needs to get back on the right path. What would you recommend mentor wise? What would you kind of give next steps there? And what would your square one be for those people right now struggling?
Wow, that's such a cool question. Number one, guys, I would always, Pat, this is I might have told you this story, but it is one of the most moving things I ever heard. But we had a kid at school that was not an athlete, and he was kind of an outcast, just having a tough time. And he had even contemplated, potentially taking his own life. And one of the things our principals did, and I love it, and he's a good friend of mine. But he asked him, he said, "Hey, is there anybody around campus that you look up to? Someone that, makes you feel comfortable." And I get choked up when I say this. I'm going to try not to get choked up. But he mentioned our linebacker, Noble Johnston, who's a stud, Jack. He's just a stud. But he said he just was a great human being, a unanimous captain every year he played. And he was the quietest guy on the team, led by example. And that kid said, I kind of look up to him. And they have nothing in common. But Noble was nice to him. In other words, he saw him and he treated him well, where a lot of other kids were really on this guy. And he looked up to him. And what I would tell someone is find someone that you can look up to or someone that you respect, and don't be afraid to ask for help, especially if it's with a coach or a teacher, for crying out loud. But even if it's a person, I think people are inherently good, but anyway, I guess, Pat, find someone that will take the time with you, and they're out there. They really are. And, sometimes it might start with mom and dad. I know sometimes kids are maybe hesitant to talk to mom and dad, but hey, no one loves you more than they do, right?
I agree. I don't shout out my mom enough on these episodes, and I think I should do that more. I don't play college baseball without my mom. I don't play college baseball without my brother, some of my friends. When I had dark days like everybody else does, right? I think leaning in and being vulnerable and speaking up about it and talking about it, the good, the bad, the ugly, the real people will stick around. It might not, and we've talked about this in other episodes, it might not be the first person. You can go to someone, they might just not have time that day and you might feel worse. But if you find your group, your people that have that same mindset, the goals and aspirations, you're going to feel better. And I think we've touched on professional help and we've touched on mentors and leadership. And there's a lot of good. Just keep searching for it. Jackie, what do you got?
Oh yeah, this is reminding me of last week. My best friend and I were we were driving somewhere and we were talking, and she's someone, not that I feel I can't go to. It's just I feel as if I have a hard time opening up to people about, like, when I'm anxious or when I'm down or having bad days, because I feel misunderstood sometimes, and I feel alone and isolated, and I feel like, oh yeah, that I know that person loves and supports me. Like, I know I have support in so many areas of life, in so many age levels and age brackets and people, but I just always have this concern that people don't get it. So I never really mentioned to my best friend how I was feeling and how I get worked up about the future and anxious. And we were driving in the car, and she looked at me and she started talking. She's like, "Do you ever get really anxious about the future?" And I turned and I was like, "Yeah, I thought I didn't know you did." She's like, "I didn't know you did." And it's like the person I'm with like 6 days a week, like spend all my time with, like laugh with, my best friend. It's like we had been dealing with the same things and just not really saying anything because we didn't think the other person dealt with it. And it's like you never know. Like you
That's it.
think you know somebody and you think, oh, they don't get that or X, Y, and Z. Just be open and you'll learn to understand that we're like I always say we're all more similar than we think.
I love Jim's point earlier about his linebacker. Like all it takes is being transparent and not judging a book by its cover and going in there with an open heart and open mind. I think you treat the janitor how you treat the CEO. You do one thing, how you do everything. And I think that's so powerful. And if you're sitting and listening to this podcast today going, oh, this is all gravy, but like, how can I get ahead? That's how you get ahead. That's how you make the money. That's how you make the impact. That's how you get to where you want to go. Because we look around, Jim, how long you been at NCSA now?
About 9 years.
How long were you a high school coach, helped out with college coaching?
35.
You have over 40 plus years. I'm terrible at math. It might be 50. 40 plus years in this game. And all the things that you've gone through, it's fun to see you now and like sit here on a Sunday morning and go, this guy is kind. This guy is a life changer. And Jim, between you and me, and I might get a little bit choked up, I hope I can look back 40 years from now and go, you know, I want to be like Jim Vert. So I just want to sit down.
Well, that's awesome, Pat. I appreciate that. And Pat, you're already in Pat. Like I said, first time I heard you on a coaching thing, I'm all, who's this guy? And I even called Jackie. I called Pat. I said, hey, look, it was when I was in the sales side of it, but I had a kid and I go, I got a baseball guy and I want him to be with you, you know, and just based on what I heard. But yeah, but you know what I think another thing that Jackie hit on it, guys, there's something I've learned in all my years is that everybody has a skeleton in the closet, has a hang up about something, has a fear, is uncomfortable with some things. I mean, no one's just this perfect human being walking around, you know, with no problem. So, Jackie, it's funny that you found that out with your best friend just by, I mean, she ended up bringing up something that you probably wanted to bring up. Yeah. I just think when you look at people, we're all imperfect. And, you know, we all have our little things that we're probably not even proud of, some things, right? But I just think people aren't alone. And you know what? Church, praying is, that's another thing. And I know not everybody's religious or that, but I think there's just a lot of outlets for people that really need help or a friend, and got to put yourself out there a little bit. But I do know this: no matter how bad it is, it will get better, right? It will get better no matter what, if you reach out and take a chance.
So. I love you, brother. That's amazing. That's amazing. And I'm looking at the clock and we're 35 minutes in. I'm like, who put the shot clock on Excel clock on me? Because holy crap. Here's what I want to do. I know it's a Sunday. I want to be conscious of your time. The reason we started this podcast and when me and Luke got this thing rolling was to impact one person. I know we're doing that. I think we've got to that point. I want to talk to you about your keep going moment, because it's not always been sunshine and rainbows for you. We've talked about some good stuff, some bad stuff. Tell me your keep going moment.
Wow. You mean, Pat, do you mean
something,
maybe a time when I felt like
something that should have broke the normal man down that didn't?
Oh, wow. Guys, I'll tell you, there's yeah. About 15 years ago, Pat, I was in a business and spent a lot of money on it, put a lot of time into it, and that business failed. And when it failed, it was a domino effect. I went bankrupt. My house was foreclosed on. I got divorced. I mean, it was like, guys, I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, just one of those things is devastating. Trust me, you never want to go through any of them. But I went through them all at one time. And, you know, guys, I went through a period where I was pretty down, pretty depressed, and felt like a failure. You know, like, gosh, I lost my house. I didn't make it in business. My marriage of 30 years. I mean, you know, and I'll tell you what I relied on and what helped me were my friends. Again, I prayed and I have that background, but my friends came to the rescue and helped me get through some tough times. And you know, the fact that I played sports so long, you guys, and that competitive spirit, you know, of not wanting to give into it, because I could have tossed my hands up and, you know, I could have started drinking. I could have done a lot of things that would have just irrigated the problems. Instead, I just said, you know what, I'm going to buckle down here and I'm going to put it back together. And the other thing that helped me, you guys, is that I know I'm not alone. I'm not the only guy that's gone through that stuff. A lot of my friends had gone through some of it. So I really leaned on them. And then I think that was my moment where, you know, my life changed dramatically. And then I had to say, okay, man, I got to buckle down and focus on things I'm good at, things I know and things I love, and be around the people I love. And that's what I did. So that was about 15 years ago, Pat. And it was rough, but yeah.
I had no idea that was the thing. I didn't know any of it going in. You just pieced together someone's survival guide today. Jackie, go ahead.
I like how you touched on too that you could have turned to alcohol and other things, because I think it's really easy when people get down and out to turn to things and to think like, I think a lot of people too think that they can get through it alone, and then that's when they turn to alcohol and they turn to other things. So for you to come on here today and be that vulnerable in talking about that time period of your life, and then teaching the listeners sort of how, like, just the importance of friendship, and like, your friends really are your family, and leaning on people. And if you've ruined other relationships, or your business failed, or you're in a financial crisis, like, just lean on people and you don't have to be alone. And I haven't cried on an episode yet, but you just made me come real damn close.
I've
Well,
teared up twice and I have no shame.
yeah.
I have no shame. Here's a quote I heard this week, and I'll let Jim wrap us up because I could talk to this. We have talked for hours. I mean, we could talk about whatever's going on for hours here. I love you. I love this. What I was going to say, the quote I was going to go to, I heard it this week, and it was something along the lines of, if your goals, dreams, aspirations, and relationships don't make you cry at some point, they're not strong enough, big enough, or good enough. Sorry. And I know that's very blunt, but like, I'm at that point. Be vulnerable. That's what it is. It's 2023, about to be 2024. We're at that point. Speaking of being at that point, we're 45 minutes in. Jim, if there's something you haven't touched on yet, I'm just going to kind of give you the open mic here to wrap us up. Go ahead. Whatever you got. Go ahead.
Well, first of all, thank you guys. I appreciate you having me. And just to recap on what I told you guys, you know what? If the tough things you go through in life and help somebody else, again, to where they don't feel alone. Like, I mean, when you feel like a failure at something, guys, that's a terrible thing. I mean, and so that's why I said everybody has something that has happened to them, or that they're not proud of, or that, something they're afraid of. And I think when you can fight through it with the love and support of friends and family, guys, no one's going to love you more than family. I think that's really important. And I think, to close, Pat, I just would encourage people, life is so short. It just is. And it could end in a second. It really could. And guys, I'm just not to make anybody upset here, but just found out 2 days ago that a kid that basically grew up in our house was killed in a car accident. And it was very tough for my oldest son. And what I'm trying to convey to those guys is, hey guys, that's why life is fleeting. We don't know when our number's up. So take advantage of every single second, every single minute to do the things that you love and do them with the people that you love. And guys, talking about vulnerability, don't be afraid to tell someone you love them. Give them a hug. I don't know if you guys have ever seen the professor Leo Biscaglia. Have you ever seen anything he's done?
No.
If you haven't, I want you to look him up. Leo Biscaglia, I think is his name. I can't spell it, but watch something that he talks about, and it's amazing. It gives me chills thinking about it. But just making people feel important and loved is a great feeling, not only for them, but it's really good for you too. So that's what I would say, guys. And again, I appreciate you having me on today. It's been fun.
Jim, it's been our pleasure. I'm getting a lot of John Gordon vibes today. Like, we got to get y'all connected. I don't know if you know who John Gordon is, but it's the leadership with love, and I think this has been an echoing message throughout today. Jackie, what do you got to cap us?
There's a quote that I feel like resonates a lot with everything that you're about, Jim, and I don't even remember where I heard it. I might have been at a concert or somewhere, but it was, you can always count the dollars in your bank account. You can always count how many likes you have on an Instagram post, but you can't count how much time you have left with the people that you love. And I think that's message is a great way to cap off the episode. And I'm sorry for your loss, but I appreciate you being vulnerable about it and articulating it with a lesson today.
Absolutely.
That's awesome.
Absolutely. Jim, this is something that I'm trying to be better at, and I'll get you out of here. I've been asking the last couple guests on behalf of the Keep Going podcast how we can help you. You've helped us today. You've helped hundreds of listeners today, hopefully thousands. Hopefully we look back and this is thousands of listeners. How can we help you would be my last question.
Passing it, playing it forward. Just if you got something out of today, take that and bless somebody else. Or, and you guys are obviously very passionate people. Keep doing what you're doing. It matters. Guys, there's times when you're going to be down, but that smile, that hug, that encouragement, that mentoring, that coaching, it matters, man. It could change a life like that. Just keep doing it. And that would make me feel good, knowing that, like-minded people are continuing that crusade to change lives. And that would be awesome.
Oh my goodness. That's my favorite answer to this. We're going to keep asking this question every week because I absolutely love it. That's awesome, man. I'll wrap us up. Jim Vert, you are a lost art in today. And I hope we find it as a generation, because if we got more Jim Verts floating around, we'll be in good shape.
Thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Love you, brother. Jackie, love you too.
Thank you, Jim. Love you both.
Love you guys.
Great meeting you, Jackie.